The German Shepherd's roar shook the air, sharp, fierce, terrifying. Every adult watching froze. But the little girl in the pink dress didn't run. She didn't scream. She just stood there, face to face with the dog everyone feared. That dog was Rex, a retired police canine once praised as a hero, until tragedy struck. After losing his handler in a deadly explosion, he'd never let anyone near him again. Trainers called him dangerous. Officers said he was beyond saving. But on that quiet afternoon, something unbelievable happened. The moment that tiny girl stepped forward, Rex stopped barking. His growl faded. And for the first time in months, he lowered his head. No one could explain it. No one dared to believe it. Because that little girl wasn't just facing a dangerous dog, she was about to heal a broken soldier's heart. Stay till the end. This story will move you. The sun had barely risen over the police canine training facility when the sound of a snarl shattered the morning calm. Officers froze mid-stride. Behind the reinforced cage stood a massive German Shepherd, muscles taut, eyes burning like amber fire. His name was Rex, once the pride of the department, a legend among canine units. But now, he was the dog nobody dared to approach. Once Rex had been a hero. His bite had brought down armed criminals, his instincts had saved lives. He'd earned medals, headlines, and the respect of every officer in the precinct. But that was before the explosion, before that single night, when a mission went wrong, and his handler, Officer Jason Cole, never came back. Since that day, Rex had changed. The obedient partner turned into something unpredictable, almost haunted. Every time someone tried to approach his kennel, he lunged at the bars, teeth bared, eyes wild with memories only he could see. The trainers whispered that he was beyond saving. He's too far gone, one said quietly, watching as Rex paced in restless circles. It's like he's waiting for someone who's never coming back. Even Mark Jensen, the K-9 commander who had worked with Rex from the start, couldn't calm him anymore. He'd stand outside the cage, voice steady but heart heavy. "Easy, boy," he'd whisper. But the only response was a deep, guttural growl, low, warning, full of grief. Word spread quickly through the station. The hero dog had turned dangerous. Officers avoided his wing. New recruits were told to stay away. Yet deep down, Mark couldn't bring himself to give up. He remembered the loyalty in those eyes, the way Rex once leapt into danger without hesitation. That dog was still in there, somewhere beneath the pain. But every day, hope faded a little more. Rex's cage felt less like a kennel and more like a prison. And behind those steel bars stood not a monster, but a broken soldier still waiting for the partner he lost. The following week, the precinct welcomed a new recruit, Officer Ryan Blake. Fresh from academy training, full of confidence and curious about everything. During orientation, he noticed the warning sign on one of the kennels. "Caution, do not approach Rex." Ryan chuckled. "How bad can he be?" he muttered, stepping closer. Behind him, veterans exchanged nervous glances. Mark Jensen, standing nearby, caught the movement immediately. "Blake," he called sharply, "don't." But curiosity overpowered caution. Ryan crouched a few feet from the cage, speaking softly. "Hey, buddy. Easy there." For a moment, Rex stood still, silent, almost studying him. Then, without warning, he lunged, slamming against the bars with a thunderous growl that echoed through the room. Ryan fell backward, heart pounding, his cap flying off. The sound of metal rattling filled the air as Rex bared his teeth, eyes wild, saliva dripping from his muzzle. "Get back," Mark barked, rushing forward. Two officers grabbed Ryan, pulling him away as Rex continued snarling, his massive paws clawing at the steel. When the chaos settled, Mark turned to the shaken recruit. "You just learned why nobody gets close," he said grimly. "That dog isn't angry, Marwan. He's in pain. And pain makes the best soldier the most dangerous." Ryan nodded silently, shame and fear mixing in his eyes. Behind them, Rex's growls faded into low, mournful whimpers. the sound of a heart still trapped in grief. Mark lingered by the cage a moment longer, staring through the bars. "You were always the bravest of them all," he whispered to Rex. "But bravery can't save you from loss." As he walked away, Rex's eyes followed him, haunted, lost, and waiting for someone who would finally understand. Days turned into weeks, and the situation only worsened. Rex's behavior grew more erratic, growling at shadows, snapping at the air, refusing food unless left completely alone. Trainers came and went, all leaving with the same conclusion: he's too far gone. Mark Jensen sat in the small conference room, the air heavy with tension. The police chief, a stern man named Captain Hale, stood at the head of the table, holding a file marked K9 Evaluation Report, Rex. His tone was firm but regretful. "We've given this dog every chance. 3 behavioral specialists, 2 months of observation. Nothing's changed." Mark clenched his fists beneath the table. "He just needs more time," he argued. "He's not violent without reason. He's grieving." "Grief doesn't excuse danger," Hale replied quietly. "Last week he nearly tore through the cage during cleaning. If that officer hadn't moved fast, we'd be writing a report about an injury. Or worse." Silence filled the room. The unspoken words hung in the air. Euthanasia. Mark's throat tightened. "You can't do this. He saved lives. He deserves better than a needle." Hale sighed. "You know I respect that dog as much as you do, but the city's liability is at stake. If he can't be rehabilitated in 30 days, we'll have no choice." Mark stood slowly, the chair scraping against the floor. "Then I'll take responsibility for him," he said. "Every session, every feeding, every second." The chief hesitated, then gave a reluctant nod. 30 days, Jensen. That's all I can give you." As Mark left the room, the file remained open on the table, the word "Final Notice" stamped in red ink. Outside, Rex let out a low, aching whine, as if he already knew his fate was being decided. The next morning, sunlight spilled through the tall glass windows of the precinct lobby, casting golden streaks across the floor. It was supposed to be an ordinary day, paperwork, briefings, and endless reports, until the doors opened and a gentle voice broke the routine. "Excuse me, is Officer Mark Jensen here?" Mark looked up from his desk to see a young woman standing at the counter, holding the hand of a little girl in a pink dress. The woman's face was kind but tired, her eyes shadowed with the weight of single motherhood. "I'm Dr. Emily Carter," she said softly. "I'm here to drop off some documents for the medical clearance program." Mark nodded, offering a polite smile. "You can leave them here. I'll make sure they're processed." While the adults talked, the little girl, Lily, no more than 5, wandered a few steps away, her curious eyes scanning the hallway. That's when she noticed the corridor leading to the K9 unit. From the distance came the faint sound of claws scraping metal and a low, guttural growl. "Doggy?" she whispered, tilting her head. Before anyone could stop her, Lily slipped away, following the sound. Her tiny footsteps echoed against the cold floor as she approached the dimly lit corridor. When Mark turned around, his heart stopped. "Lily!" he shouted, sprinting after her. But it was too late. She was already standing in front of Rex's cage. The German Shepherd's massive frame loomed in the shadows, his golden eyes locked on the child. Officers froze, the air thick with dread. Rex's chest rose and fell rapidly, a deep growl vibrating through the room. Emily gasped from the doorway, panic flooding her voice. "Lily, don't move." But the little girl didn't listen. She just smiled. Time seemed to stop. Every officer in the K9 corridor froze, their hands halfway raised, unsure whether to shout or move. Inside the reinforced cage, Rex stood perfectly still, his ears erect, his muscles coiled like springs. The air was heavy with the tension of an invisible line no one dared to cross. Lily, small and fearless, tilted her head as she looked at the dog. Her soft voice broke the silence. "Hi there, doggy." Rex's chest heaved with slow, measured breaths. His tail didn't move. His eyes, sharp and unblinking, tracked every motion of the child's tiny hand as she clutched the edge of the cage. "Lily!" Emily's voice cracked as she ran toward her daughter. "Step away from there, sweetheart." But Lily didn't move. Her gaze stayed fixed on Rex as though she saw something the others couldn't. Not the snarling beast everyone feared, but a lonely soul behind the steel bars. "Don't worry," she whispered softly. "I won't hurt you." Mark's heart pounded. He knew how quickly Rex could turn. One wrong move and one twitch, and then it would all be over. "Lily, listen to me," he said carefully, voice steady but urgent. "Take one step back, slowly." But before she could, Rex growled, deep, thunderous, echoing off the walls. The officers raised their hands, ready to intervene, but Mark signaled them to hold. Something was different. Rex's growl wasn't filled with rage this time. It was lower, confused. His hackles lowered slightly, his ears twitched. The dog's gaze softened for the briefest second as Lily crouched down, her eyes wide with quiet compassion. "You're sad, aren't you?" she murmured. The words hung in the air like a fragile thread. Mark swallowed hard, watching the impossible unfold. For months, Rex had lunged at anyone who dared to come near. But now, in front of this innocent little girl, he didn't attack. He didn't even bark, he just stared, as if seeing hope for the first time since the day he lost his partner. No one dared to move. The officers stood frozen behind the glass partition, watching through the reflection as the unthinkable unfolded. The growling had stopped. The air inside the K9 wing was so still it felt like the world had forgotten how to breathe. Rex's massive frame loomed over the small girl who stood barely chest-high to the cage. His amber eyes flickered, and no longer wild but searching. A single moment of hesitation hung between them like a fragile bridge. "Easy, Rex," Mark whispered, his hand hovering near the tranquilizer trigger. Not to harm, but to protect if things went wrong. Lily, completely unaware of the danger, simply smiled. "You don't have to be scared," she said softly, her voice trembling but kind. For a split second, Rex's body tensed, muscles tight, ready to lunge. A low rumble escaped his throat. Every officer in the room braced themselves. Emily clutched the doorframe, her knuckles white. Then, something changed. Rex's ears slowly tilted forward. The hair on his back settled. His breathing steadied. He tilted his head, studying the child's face like he was seeing light for the first time in months. Lily's tiny hand pressed gently against the cage bars, her palm no bigger than his muzzle. To everyone's shock, Rex didn't back away. He took a step closer, then another. The clink of his collar echoed softly in the silence. "Lily, don't move," Mark murmured, barely breathing. But Lily whispered instead, "Good boy." Rex's nose brushed the tips of her fingers. His body shuddered, a deep, silent tremor that seemed to carry every memory, every loss. Then slowly, he lowered his head. The entire room gasped. Months of rage, fear, and pain melted into that single moment, when a broken K9 finally found comfort in the gentlest touch imaginable. Mark lowered his hand from the tranquilizer, his voice cracking with awe. "Unbelievable," he breathed. "She's the first one he's let near him since Jason died." And for the first time in what felt like forever, Rex closed his eyes. Not in threat, but in peace. The officers stared in disbelief. No one spoke, no one breathed. It was as if time itself had frozen inside that narrow corridor. Rex's enormous head rested just inches from Lily's small hand, and yet the feared K9 didn't snarl, didn't flinch. His entire body trembled, caught between instinct and emotion. Lily's hand pressed gently against the cold steel. "It's okay," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "You're a good boy," Rex blinked. Slowly, he leaned forward until his wet nose brushed the girl's fingers. For months, no one had been able to get within reach. But now, this fragile child, this stranger, had done what trained officers couldn't. Emily covered her mouth, tears filling her eyes. Mark's chest tightened as he watched his old partner soften for the first time since the explosion. The growls were gone, replaced by faint, broken whines. Sounds of confusion, maybe even longing. Lily smiled. "See? You're not mean," she said innocently. "You're just sad." Rex's eyes met hers, eyes that had seen chaos, loss, and death, and something inside him shifted. His tail, stiff for months, twitched once, then again. Mark lowered his weapon and exhaled slowly. "That's it, buddy." "That's my boy," he whispered, his throat tight. For the first time since tragedy struck, Rex allowed someone to touch him. A child's small hand had reached through layers of trauma, fear, and pain, and reminded a broken soul that he was still capable of trust. In that moment, every officer realized something extraordinary. This wasn't just a dog being tamed. It was a wounded soldier finally remembering what love felt like. The story of the little girl and the fierce K9 spread through the precinct like wildfire. Officers who once refused to go near Rex now gathered behind glass windows, peeking in disbelief as Lily knelt beside the cage, talking to him as if he were just an ordinary dog. Mark couldn't explain it. No one could. But deep down, he felt there was more to this than coincidence. That evening, Emily sat in Mark's office, still shaken but grateful. "I can't believe he didn't hurt her," she said softly, her hands trembling as she clutched a cup of coffee. I thought he was going to attack." Mark nodded, still watching the monitor that displayed the K9 camera feed. Rex was lying down now, something he hadn't done near anyone in months. "He's never done that before," Mark murmured. "It's like he recognizes her somehow." Emily frowned. "Recognizes her? How?" Mark hesitated, then reached for a dusty old case file on his shelf. Rex's former handler, Jason Cole, was killed on duty last year. The explosion that broke Rex, it was the same one that almost took my team too. He flipped open the file, revealing a photo of Jason smiling beside Rex. Emily's breath caught. Her eyes widened as she whispered, "Jason Cole?" Mark looked up. "You knew him?" Tears welled in her eyes. "He was my husband's best friend," she said, her voice breaking. "Jason saved my husband during an ambush years ago. If it wasn't for him, Lily wouldn't even be alive." Mark leaned back, speechless. The coincidence was too much to ignore. Down the hall, Rex lifted his head as if sensing the conversation. His gaze turned toward the office door, ears twitching, a subtle, almost knowing look. Emily wiped her tears, whispering more to herself than anyone else. Maybe that's why he trusts her. Maybe he feels something familiar, and for the first time, Mark began to wonder if fate, not chance, had brought Lily and Rex together. The next morning, the K9 unit felt different, lighter, calmer, almost hopeful. For the first time in months, Rex wasn't growling when the staff entered. Instead, he sat quietly in his kennel, eyes fixed on the door, waiting. Everyone knew who he was waiting for. Right on schedule, the small footsteps echoed down the hall. "Good morning, Rex," Lily called cheerfully, her pink backpack bouncing as she ran in. The moment she appeared, Rex's ears perked, his tail wagging ever so slightly. Officers exchanged stunned glances, some smiling, others just speechless. "Careful," Mark said gently, but even he couldn't hide his amazement. He stood nearby, clipboard in hand, pretending to take notes, but his heart was racing with pride. Lily crouched by the cage, talking to Rex in her soft, innocent tone. "You must be hungry, huh?" she said, sliding a treat through the bars. Rex sniffed it, then took it from her hand without a single growl. The officers behind the glass nearly applauded. Every day after that, Lily and her mother visited the precinct. At first for just a few minutes, then an hour, then longer, and with every visit Rex grew calmer, more responsive. His tail wagged when he saw her. He barked softly when she laughed. When she read picture books aloud, he'd lie down and listen, eyes half closed, something no one had seen him do since before the explosion. Mark started recording every session. "Document this," he told the team. "This isn't training, this is healing." Even the chief stopped by, arms crossed but smiling faintly. "You might have found your miracle, Jensen," he said quietly. Mark nodded, unable to take his eyes off the pair. A once-broken K9 and a fearless little girl rebuilding each other. One gentle moment at a time. No one could explain it scientifically, but everyone who witnessed it knew one thing for certain. This wasn't just progress. It was transformation. That night, long after everyone had gone home, the K9 facility was silent, except for the soft hum of the security lights. Mark sat alone in the observation room, replaying the footage from that day. He watched as Lily reached through the bars, as Rex lowered his head in surrender, and as something unspoken passed between them. It was more than trust. It was memory. He leaned back in his chair, rubbing his tired eyes. "What did you see in her, old boy?" he murmured. Inside the kennel, Rex stirred in his sleep. His paws twitched, his chest heaved, and somewhere deep in the darkness of his mind, the nightmare replayed again. The memory always started the same. The night was thick with smoke and sirens. Officer Jason Cole, Rex's handler, crouched beside a van with his hand on Rex's collar. "Stay close, partner," he whispered. "We've got this." Then, the explosion. A deafening roar. Fire. The world went white. Rex had been thrown into the air, ears ringing, lungs burning. When he scrambled to his feet, Jason was gone. The leash lay in the dirt, torn and smoking. Rex howled, a sound that split through the chaos, and clawed at the debris until his paws bled. He refused to leave even as firefighters dragged him away. His eyes never left the ruins where his partner had fallen. The trauma carved itself into his soul. Every face after that blurred into fear and confusion. No voice, no command, no hand could reach him, because the only one he trusted had vanished. But now, for the first time, that memory was fading. Rex whimpered softly in his sleep, his tail twitching as images shifted, not of fire and death, but of a small hand touching his muzzle, a voice saying softly, "You're a good boy." When Mark checked the monitor, he saw something that made his throat tighten. Rex wasn't pacing anymore. He was lying still, calm, peaceful, as if the ghosts that haunted him were finally quiet. "Rest easy, buddy," Mark whispered through the glass. "She's helping you find your way home." And in that quiet night, for the first time since the explosion, Rex slept without nightmares. The next week, the precinct buzzed with quiet disbelief. Word of Rex's transformation had spread beyond the K-9 division. Officers who once crossed the hallway to avoid his kennel now peeked through the glass to watch him gently press his paw against the bars whenever Lily arrived. The impossible was happening right before their eyes, but not everyone saw it as a victory. In the chief's office, Captain Hale stood by the window, arms crossed, watching Mark through the glass below. "You're telling me a 5-year-old did what 3 certified trainers couldn't?" he asked, half incredulous, half wary. Mark nodded, standing firm. "Sir, it's not just about training. That girl reached him. He's calmer, eating again, responding to commands. He's healing." Hale turned, his face lined with concern. "You're asking me to ignore policy? That dog's still classified as unstable. One wrong move and then the department takes the fall." "I'll take the fall," Mark said immediately. "He deserves the chance." The chief studied him for a long moment. Outside, Rex barked once, a short, almost playful sound. Hale sighed deeply, the sound of a man torn between duty and compassion. 30 days were all you had," Hale said. "But after seeing this, I'm extending it. Keep her visit supervised. No more risks." Mark's shoulders eased with relief. "Thank you, sir." Hale paused at the door. "Don't thank me yet. Miracles have a way of breaking hearts when you start believing in them." As he left, Mark glanced toward the kennel. Lily was laughing, Rex's tail wagging through the bars. For the first time in months, the station didn't feel haunted. It felt hopeful, and hope was something the department hadn't seen in a long time. A week later, the spring afternoon was warm and bright, a rare moment of peace for everyone. Emily had promised Lily a short walk in the park after dropping off the last of her hospital reports. Mark joined them, bringing Rex along for his first supervised outing in months. The K-9 wore his vest again, the word police gleaming faintly under the sun. For Mark, it wasn't just a walk, it was a test. Could Rex handle the outside world again? Crowds, sounds, smells? Could he trust himself the way he once did? At first, everything went beautifully. Lily skipped along the path, holding Emily's hand while Rex trotted beside them, his leash firm in Mark's grip. Joggers passed, children played, and for a brief moment Rex looked like his old self, alert, proud, and calm. Then, in the distance, came a shout. "Stop him!" Mark turned sharply. Down the hill, a man was sprinting through the park, clutching a stolen purse. Behind him, an elderly woman cried for help. 2 off-duty officers gave chase but were falling behind. Before Mark could react, Rex's body stiffened. His ears snapped forward, muscles tensed, eyes locked on the fleeing suspect. "Rex, stay," Mark commanded instinctively, but the command came too late. The German shepherd surged forward, leash tearing from Mark's grasp. "Rex," Emily gasped, pulling Lily back as the dog bolted across the grass like a bullet. People screamed, scattering as Rex thundered past benches and swings. For a split second, panic flooded Mark's chest, not because he feared what Rex might do to the thief, but what the department might do to Rex if this went wrong. The suspect glanced back just as Rex launched. The impact was explosive. Man and dog hit the ground hard, the purse flying from his hands. In seconds, Rex had pinned him, barking sharply, holding him down but not biting. Mark sprinted over, cuffs ready, heart racing. When he reached them, the suspect was trembling, arms raised. Rex stood above him, focused, restrained, waiting for Mark's next word. Mark's voice broke through, filled with pride and relief. "Good boy. Stand down." Rex obeyed instantly. The park erupted in applause as the old woman cried with gratitude. But Mark's eyes glistened for another reason, because for the first time in a long, long while, his partner had just come back to him. The moment was chaos, sirens shouting, the crackle of police radios. But through it all, one thing stood clear. Rex stood tall, his chest heaving, eyes alert, the thief pinned beneath his paw. His fur was flecked with dirt, but in that stance he looked every bit the hero he had once been. Mark cuffed the suspect swiftly, adrenaline pounding in his veins. "You did it, buddy," he breathed, giving Rex a firm pat. The dog's tail wagged once, a small, proud flick that said everything words couldn't. Emily and Lily ran up from behind, breathless. "Rex!" Lily cried, throwing her arms around his neck the moment Mark loosened his grip. For a heartbeat, everyone froze, half expecting Rex to react. But he didn't. Instead, the canine lowered his head gently, letting the little girl hug him as if he'd been waiting for that moment all along. The crowd that had gathered broke into applause. Phones came out, flashes sparkled, and someone whispered, "That's the same police dog from the news and the one they said was dangerous." Mark looked at Rex, pride swelling in his chest. "Not dangerous," he said quietly. "Just misunderstood." The chief arrived moments later, his car screeching to a halt. He stepped out, taking in the scene. The subdued suspect, the cheering crowd, the dog sitting calmly beside the little girl. For a long moment he said nothing. Then with a rare smile he nodded. "Looks like your 30 days paid off, Jensen." Mark grinned. He just needed a reason to believe again. Rex turned his head, watching the ambulance drive past with flashing lights. The reflection danced in his amber eyes. The same eyes that once carried grief now held strength again. As Lily stroked his fur, she whispered, "You're a hero, Rex." And maybe she didn't know it, but those words hit harder than any medal ever could. In that single day, a broken canine had reclaimed not just his purpose, but his heart. The hero who had once been lost to pain had finally returned, and beside him stood the little girl who made it all possible. The following morning, the precinct lobby was filled with an energy no one had felt in a long time. Reporters gathered outside, cameras flashing as the story of the aggressive police dog turned hero spread across every local channel. Officers stood proud, many smiling for the first time in months. Mark led Rex down the hallway, the canine walking confidently at his side. Gone was the broken dog who once hid behind snarls and fear. In his place marched a true soldier, tail high, eyes alert, every step steady and sure. Captain Hale waited near the podium, a small metal box in hand. "Officer Rex," he said with a faint smile, his voice echoing through the room, "you reminded us all what loyalty and redemption look like." Lily stood with Emily near the front row, her tiny hands clutching a handmade sign that read, "Rex, my hero." When Rex spotted her, his ears perked and his tail began to wag. The entire room melted. Hale placed the medal on Rex's vest and the crowd erupted in applause. Cameras flashed, capturing the moment that would later go viral. A once condemned canine reinstated as a service hero, standing proudly beside the child who saved him. Mark crouched beside his old partner, voice thick with emotion. "You earned this, buddy. You never stopped being a hero. We just forgot how to see it." Emily wiped her tears, smiling at her daughter. "He's not just a hero," she whispered. "He's family now." Later that evening, as the sun dipped below the skyline, Rex sat quietly outside the precinct steps, the metal glinting softly in the fading light. Lily ran up to hug him one last time before heading home. No one noticed the photographer capturing that exact moment. A little girl's arms around a once broken dog, both smiling in the golden light. It was the image that would remind the world that even the fiercest hearts can heal when love dares to reach them. Weeks passed, and life slowly returned to normal, though normal felt different now. The precinct's atmosphere was lighter, warmer. Every morning, Rex waited patiently by the door, eyes bright, tail thumping softly as if expecting a familiar pair of footsteps to appear. But one morning, Lily didn't come. Emily stood quietly beside Mark in the hallway, holding a small envelope. Her eyes were red but kind. "We're moving," she said softly. "I got transferred to a hospital upstate. It's a better opportunity." But Lily's been crying for days. Mark's chest tightened. He looked down at Rex, who tilted his head as if understanding every word. "You want to say goodbye?" he asked gently. A few minutes later, Lily walked into the K9 wing one last time, clutching her pink stuffed animal. When Rex saw her, his entire body lit up, ears perked, tail wagging wildly. She ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck. He pressed his head against her shoulder, whining softly, as though begging her not to go. "I'll miss you," Lily whispered into his fur. "You're my best friend." Rex licked her cheek and the room went still. Even the officers watching from behind the glass couldn't hold back their tears. Emily smiled through her own. "He'll always remember her," she said. Mark nodded. "So will we." Lily pulled back, placing something small in Rex's collar, a pink ribbon tied neatly in a bow. "So you don't forget me," she said with a trembling smile. When she finally walked away, Rex let out a low, mournful howl that echoed through the entire station. It wasn't anger. It was love, the kind that stays long after goodbyes. That evening, Mark stood beside Rex's kennel, watching him rest with the ribbon still on his collar. "She changed you," he whispered. "And maybe she changed all of us." The narrator's voice fades in, soft, emotional, full of meaning. Sometimes it doesn't take an army to heal a broken heart. Just a little girl and a little kindness. If this story touched you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, because love, loyalty, and hope are stories worth spreading.